There's a world out there, it's a digital maze where dollars move in mysterious ways. Complex systems, rules, and regulations. The payments professor sparks revelations. No need to fear the Fed now.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Payments Podium. Today, Star Log 16/23/1985, whatever. I don't know how Captain Picard does that, but I do know one thing. We're going into the quantum realm here, or something like that. You guys have probably seen her on here before. Her name's Nanci McKenzie. She's been here before. She's been on the podcast many different times. But since the last time, I think things have changed a little bit in your life, Nanci. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us, what are you doing now?
Sure. Well, thank you, Payments Professor, for asking me back to the Payments Podium again. This is awesome. Very honored to join you again. I have made a little bit of a change. I am with the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, and I am officially a payments expert.
Wait. You were a payments expert before, but I guess, now you're a payments expert with the Federal Reserve, because I know you got all those letters after your name.
That's correct. So, with that said, let it be known that what I have to say today is not a representative of the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta or that of the Federal Reserve System.
So do you hereby raise your hand and swear that the opinions given today are those of Nanci McKenzie and not those of the Federal Reserve?
I do.
I do. All right. Well, now we are married to getting this done. Now, our topic today has been quantum computing. It's been a huge topic in electronic banking. It's coming up in more and more conferences. It's like, 10, 15 years ago, we're like, what's Bitcoin? What's cryptocurrency? Now we still don't understand it, but we're trying hard to understand it. And now we got this new big buzzword, quantum mechanics. Now, when it comes, not quantum mechanics, quantum computing. When it comes to quantum computing, I want to play a little game with you. This is a game you told me you've played before, so I got to do it. In 25 words or less, explain quantum computing.
Quantum computing is a new way of. I'm watching your fingers move, so it was distracting. Computing where the cryptography is going to provide much better security for the data that we are moving through systems. It's not just.
All right. I don't know how many words that is. How about this? Let's give, you've heard me before. It's like, here's the payments professor's version or explanation. It may not be 100% accurate, but it's something that the common person can understand, because that thing, expert bias, gets in the way. We use terminology that nobody understands except people in the industry. So if you were to explain it to somebody on the street, what would you tell them that quantum banking is going to be?
Well, we're going to be looking at time where the security mechanisms around our data is going to be more difficult to crack. So let me first tell you this, Payments Professor. I am not going to get technical in the description of quantum, okay? I am not that technical type of person. I look at it on a operational type of a process, as well as a security process, as well as risk management type of process, okay? So if I were to try to explain what quantum computing is to those types of individuals that are going to be working within our industry, which is the financial industry, it is going to be able to provide additional security layers for their data that they are storing in their systems. And that's not just their core system. We also have to think of it in their third-party service providers systems, because we've got data that is being shared. We want to make certain that the data is kept secure. And in a risk management type of way, we're going to have abilities to monitor the data in a much more efficient, more effective, and quicker process. So the risk management components around quantum computing is what is really going to be a benefit for financial institutions and those that work within the financial industry.
So if I'm hearing right, this is a good thing. This means we're going to have more capabilities, faster capabilities of being able to deal with security and risk issues.
Yes, we are. Now, there are very good benefits when we're talking in that type of a manner, but we've also got some things that are a little threatening. Okay. So the threats could be that, well, because quantum is so quick, we possibly have a challenge these days. It's kind of like the race to the man on the moon. Okay. Everybody's trying to get that man on the moon, right? Well, everybody's trying to get their quantum computing up and running because right now we have a computing system which is classical, as I'll just say, and the encryption on that classical type of computing is good. But could somebody crack the encryption on that data? Possibly. Is it easy? No. But could it be done? Yes.
So when that race to the man on the moon, I got to ask, just to make sure for those, watching, listening in, this is something we are doing, working towards in the banking industry, but we also know there is that dark side that we don't like. There's the dark web people that are out there, the hackers and the ne'er-do-wells, as I like to refer to them as nicely as I can. They're out there trying to use this for bad purposes. We're looking at using it for productive, positive purposes.
Yes, you're exactly correct. So if we had a bad actor that was successful with the quantum computing and the speed that a quantum computer could try to calculate what that encryption code is to crack that encryption code, it could happen literally within a couple of seconds.
Because that's what quantum does, is it does everything faster, better than ever before.
Exactly. So we are seeing that there are advances in quantum computing. It is coming. So it is so very important for us in the financial industry to be aware of what the quantum computing processes are and that we prepare now. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, which stands for NIST, it happens to be under our Department of Commerce. They have been working for years to come up with a quantum safe algorithm that will be used in quantum computing. Last August, they approved 3 of those algorithms. So we are now talking a post quantum safety awareness that we need to prepare for, which they're predicting, and this is NIST, they're predicting that quantum computing will be up live and running by 2030. Now, are there versions of some quantum computing that are starting to pop up? I happen to be on a project team with Payments Innovation Alliance, which, Kevin, I know you are very well involved with.
The Payments Professor is the biggest fan of the Payments Innovation Alliance there is. There's probably a banner going across the video right now saying you need to join the Payments Innovation Alliance because of the work that gets done and knowing that there are also subgroups like the one you're mentioning now that focus on quantum computing.
Absolutely. So we on the project team, which I encourage everybody that is a member of the Payments Innovation Alliance to get involved with the project teams. I would have never.
Yeah, real quick, we also mentioned that's a project team working on that specific topic. The Payments Innovation Alliance works on multiple topics through the electronic payments, banking spectrum and all over the place doing great things. But in this particular case, we're talking about a project team that is focused on quantum.
On quantum, yes. And I would have never known anything about quantum had I not gotten involved. So you do not need to be an expert to be part of these project teams. You become a member of the project team to increase your knowledge and increase your network. I have made many, many friends. We created a paper on just the basics of quantum computing, and it is available, which I know the Payments Professor will make it available to the audience. And it gives a very good description of what quantum computing is, why is it important to know about what it is, and what you need to do in preparing. Now, as I was mentioning that the...
Wait. You said 2030. That's a long way from now. It's 2025. That's 5 years from now. You mean I got to start doing stuff today?
You do. Because think about it. Do you remember Y2K, Kevin?
Okay, now we're going to go into how old the professor is. And yes, I do remember Y2K quite vividly. I remember everything coming up to it, because back in preschool, okay, I wasn't even in preschool. I graduated from at least preschool. Well, I graduated from college. I was old already. Yeah, I do remember.
Okay, so for some of the audience that might not know what I'm speaking of, it's the year 2000, right? Y2K. So we in the industry, we had to prepare for Y2K. Why did we have to prepare for Y2K? Because our computer systems were not capable, or possibly not capable. Yes, as I said, possibly not capable of actually recognizing a year that started with 20 and not 19. Okay. Now, I was 18 and sitting in the, no, I wasn't 18. I was sitting in the operations department on December 31, 1999. And most of the people that were in the industry were like, oh my gosh, the computers are going to crash. And when Australia went over that timeline into the year 2000, nobody heard anything. And as each country and time zone went over into that new year, nothing happened. Why?
Yeah, can we make clear? Nobody heard anything because there was no problems.
Right.
It wasn't that everything went down. It was because there was no problems.
There was no problems, right? Kevin, why wasn't there problems?
Because we prepared for it
Because we
accordingly, and in some
prepared.
cases it was actually a non-issue, but we prepared.
So with Y2Q, or the year to quantum, right? Y2Q,
Oh, I see what you did there.
if we prepare by the year 2030 comes around, we're not going to have any issues because we're going to be ready for it. What does ready look like? Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that you or I or anybody in our audience has to go out and buy new computers, right? There's going to be some changes. You may need some new hardware within your own organization. You might need to replace some software. More than likely, you will need to have some software upgrades, some changes, because it is not your typical classical type of computing. It is fast, faster than you can imagine. It's fast, right? So we need to prepare so that when 2030 comes around, which is only 4.5 years from now, and those 4.5 years go fast because it's middle of 2025 right now. In 2020, we were locked down. Doesn't that feel like it was just a couple of months ago?
Yes, no, no, that was another lifetime ago.
Anyway, so being prepared is what's really important. And, I have had many people that have asked me because I do presentations on a panel from the Quantums project team, and we are talking about our paper in those quantum panels, helping financial institutions and people in the financial industry to understand what quantum computing is and why is it so important, and what do they need to do now to prepare.
Well, I guess the big question comes up is, are the fraudsters preparing for it? And I already guessed the answer is absolutely. But the next question then is how does somebody prepare for it? Now, I want to take it from this perspective, because we know the larger institutions, Wall Street, they're probably already ready. I mean, it's 4 years away and they're probably already ready. But when we look at the heart and soul of banking in the country, which is going to be my community banks, my community credit unions, your trusted neighborhood banking offerings, which I love and I highly endorse, it's a little different for them to get prepared. What advice, what recommendations are you making, or do you have that smaller community credit union and community bank should be doing?
Yes. So, I spoke about the paper that I was working on with Payments Innovation Alliance, but earlier this year, I wrote a blog for the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta's Take on Payments. So, again, if you
And that's Take on Payments. That's the name of the blog.
it is.
People should go out there and check out that blog, Take on Payments. I have been a subscriber since day one, back when David Lott was running it, and I absolutely love it.
Yes, right. So I wrote a blog on Take on Payments about quantum computing, and My best advice is, now I want to give you some additional preparedness steps, but this is my best advice to people, and I put this in my blog. If you don't understand quantum computing, if you think, wow, this is way too complex, it's way above my pay grade, I don't know anything about this. The question community banks and credit unions should be asking in their organizations is, who does know about quantum computing? Somebody needs to know about quantum computing in your organization, and a plan is needed on
So,
how
so
you're
step
going to
one's
do it.
education. Step one's going out and learning more about what it is and how it's going to affect the industry.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because, like I said, I've had several people come to me and they're like, "Well, I don't understand what quantum computing is." Okay, if you don't, find out who in your organization does. So that's my like I said, coming out of my Take on Payments blog. Now, in our paper with Project Quantum Project Team, we do have some really good steps for you to consider in preparing for quantum computing. You want to know what those are, Kevin?
Well, yeah.
Well, you got the first one already. Awareness and education. Learn more about it. There is a lot of different resources out there for you to get a better understanding of what quantum is. And if you are not the technical person, your technical people should be looking into this and doing some research. We do give you quite a bit of help with the paper that we put together, and we've got a second one coming out, and it should be um, uh, released, I think, somewhere in the September timeframe, and it gets more detailed about the specifics behind your quantum computing requirements and being quantum safe. Okay, so stay tuned for that. That'll be coming out soon. So, awareness and education. Learn as much as you can. Second step, identify and prioritize your crown jewels. What do you suppose that means?
Okay, wait. Identify and prioritize your crown jewels. This is in the US, so that's really confusing for me right away because I start thinking crown jewels and I'm in the Tower of London. But I would assume if we're going to go with the crown jewels for a financial institution, it's probably going to be the most important aspects of what that financial institution is offering, probably their data computer systems to begin with, that they need to identify and say, hey, these systems are the ones that need to be worked on to become compliant.
Exactly. Because as I mentioned earlier, is that we have third-party service providers that we are sharing our data with all over the place. Now, we may not be necessarily responsible that that third-party service provider is working on quantum, but you should be asking them, what are they doing? Not only asking them what they're doing, especially your cores, but what data do they have? And that's what we mean by prioritizing. What data are you sharing, and is it the most important data that we need to make certain is being secure and safe? So
So what I'm hearing is you still have to, your third parties, you're still responsible for anything they have to do. We know a lot of all size financial institutions work with vendors, third parties to get things done. And even they have to be up to date and ready to go before 2030, before, as you put it, Y2Q happens and takes place. And so that would be one of the key areas is get that education, but then identify not just internally, but also externally where you're going to need to make the upgrades and changes.
absolutely. So now on to number three. One of my favorite things, risk assessment. You have got to assess where your risks are with the data and the systems that that data is living in. Risk assessments are always a large part of your risk management program, and you are always encouraged to do a risk assessment to determine where it is that you are having the riskiest actions and then putting in controls to mitigate those risks.
Okay, so in the risk assessments, it seems to me maybe that's where you would identify some of the same in step two, but is it maybe going about where, hey, I'm going to go through and identify all the different systems that can be affected, then do the risk assessments on those different systems and the different potential risk that will have to be met, And I almost wonder too, with quantum being a newer thing that we're having to deal with, part of why you have to have the education beforehand, does it present new or different types of risk, or are we just seeing the same classic risk faster?
Well, yes, I believe that what you just said is true. We'll be seeing it faster. But here's the key. Here's the key to this risk assessment is we're going to want to look at your cryptographical infrastructure that you have within these relationships of these third-party service providers. And that infrastructure is what we need to try to identify the vulnerabilities that they may or may not have when it comes to a quantum computing environment. I know that was a mouthful.
Vulnerability. That is not a fun word. It's good, to be emotionally vulnerable sometimes. It helps open up and make connections in life. But vulnerabilities in computer systems, especially with what quantum capabilities are going to have, is horrifying if you really stop and think about it. So that's, I would assume, why it's so important to start doing those. Now, I almost want to ask though, a lot of institutions, a lot of people that watch Payments Professor and we start putting, things like that out say, where do I get help? I mean, I don't know how to maybe identify these myself, and the smaller institutions be like, I'm fine. I want to get educated. I want to start doing this, but I don't think I can do it alone. Where can I get help? So are there any recommendations on where to go for assistance in this?
Well, you know, for our financial institutions, especially a lot of those that stay tuned to the Payments Professor's podcast all the time, the payments associations are a real good place to start. Obviously,
So my EPCORs, my SFE, my Payments First, my niches, all of those associations out there like that, they're the ones that are going to be able to have resources available.
they will have resources available. They have consultants as well as NACHA has a consulting arm, and they are very well versed. Many of the people that are on the consulting part are also in the quantum project team. But there are other industrial, consultants out there that are available to help get going or even become more educated on quantum. So,
So what I'm hearing, and I think what I would tell somebody if it's me, is start with your payment associations, but do know and be aware that there are other organizations and entities, businesses, services that are out there that will be able to provide assistance as you move forward. But again, I always tell people start with your payment association. You're most likely a member anyway, and it's probably a free resource to get you started. There may be a paid service, but it's a great resource at least to get you started.
absolutely. And then the number one thing that I'm going to mention in regard to that is NIST. Go onto their website,
Yes.
NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology.
Oh, NIST, not miss. I'm like, what's the myth? I mean, the myth is nothing will happen. I don't have to do anything. That's a myth. You've got to do something. But NIST, and because of standards, and we all know standards are so important because standards are what keep everything going within our industry.
Right, and we have to remember that NIST has been working on the algorithms that are quantum safe for quite some time, and they have globally approved algorithms to be used in quantum computing. And that's the next thing that I will say that you need to do to prepare. You need to make certain you're adopting a quantum safe uh, cryptography that has been approved by NIST. Okay. And they are coming out with more and more, or as much as they can, but there's still some testing that is to be done. So, just stay in tune with NIST, and they will have a lot of information for those that do need to be the technical ones within your organization so that they are on top of what's going on.
Okay, but Nanci, can I ask this? Because I know, like when ISO 20022 first came around, a lot of people are asking me, do I need to go learn ISO 20022? And my response to them was, what's your role? And depending on their role, I would tell them, no, you just need to be aware of what it is and what it's going to do. Other people would be like, I'm a programmer. You need to go learn ISO 20022. So is this another one of those situations, like say it is somebody who's putting together a quantum program for their institution to make sure it's safe? They just need to be aware of who NIST is and that there are standards and maybe even the names of what the standards are. But it's more the programmers and the service providers that they got to dig into it and make sure it's applied and put to use.
You are exactly correct. Now, on the operational side of things, though, besides being aware, you might want to start thinking ahead on how your processes may need to be changed. Things are going to be processed much faster than they are today. So that might free up time for you to do other things, take on other projects, maybe reorganize some of the tasks that you're doing on a regular basis. They're saying that, let's just say a received ACH file that might have a million transactions in it. Okay. That probably is going to take a few hours to post today using classical computing. In the quantum world, it may take a couple of minutes. So much faster. And there's nobody better talking about faster payments than the payments professor. It's faster.
Hey, I do love my faster payments. And you know what? One of the parts that I love with this is the association I get is I'm seeing quantum computing coming. I'm seeing faster payments growing rapidly within the United States. And, it's one of those things. Here's quantum computing and here's faster payments. Coincidence? I think not. I think it is something that it coincides perfectly with just where the industry is going, and it will fit accordingly to help to make sure that faster payments are a success. But I also love that you mentioned ACH because I want to tell people ACH ain't going away. No, it ain't going away. And I really believe, and actually, Nanci, I'd ask you for closing statement here. When we do get to the world of quantum computing is here, we've got it going on. It's happening. Quantum banking, let's say. What's that world look like? Is it a better world for everybody out there, or should we be worried?
No, I think it is a better world. Quantum mechanics has been out there for decades. We've been talking about quantum from Albert Einstein. I mean, there's been many, many people involved with quantum mechanics. And because our world goes faster and faster, I think that this will be a very big benefit, a positive thing for us in the future, because it is going to provide additional securities and some greater efficiencies. So, yeah, it is a much better thing. Now, there's two more real quick things I want to add into preparedness, payments professor.
Oh, you got to make them real quick. We're running out of time.
No, collaborate and innovate. Get together with people. Talk about this. Make it a conversation that you have with not just people within your organization, but conferences that you go to. You said we have these topics at conferences. Talk to people about it. But most importantly, and the last thing, strategic planning. Get your plans made. Be the good Girl Scout, good Boy Scout. Be prepared.
All right, I love it. Well, we went over a lot today. I mean, we barely touched on what quantum banking and computers are because we really focus more on things you need to do to prepare. I absolutely love that you mentioned the white paper that is available from the quantum subgroup at Payments Innovation Alliance. And if you guys are looking to get that paper, go to the Payments Innovation Alliance website. Just Google Payments Innovation Alliance. You'll find it. If you Google Payments Innovation Alliance and quantum, you'll find it even faster. So not a problem being able to get that out there. There's the 5 steps that you're going to need to be going over to make sure that you get everything. One of them, you start with education, you end with making sure you got some planning, and all of that's going to need to be followed by some action. And the next action I'd ask all of you to take is if there's a topic or a speaker you think that needs to be on the Payments Professor Payments podium, well, then send me an email, drop me a line, tell me who needs to be on here, or tell me what topic you need to have covered. Other than that, this is the part where I get to say, class dismissed.
There's a world out there, it's a digital maze where dollars move in mysterious ways. Complex systems, rules, and regulations. The payments professor sparks revelations. No